In old age, stop being a servant to your children, and it's time to start living for yourself. Have you ever had the feeling that your life no longer truly belongs to you? That your days are completely shaped by the demands and expectations of your children? As we grow older, it's completely natural to want to be present, to offer support, lend a hand, and stay connected with our family. But there's a very delicate line between being a caring parent and slowly becoming someone who's always available, always sacrificing, to the point of losing yourself. The reality is, many older adults step into this pattern without realizing it. They give too much. They put their own needs on hold. And over time, they discover that their energy, peace of mind, even their financial security have been quietly replaced by their children's ongoing requests. But here's the hopeful truth. It doesn't have to stay this way. You can still be a kind, supportive parent without giving up your independence, your dignity, or the life you've worked so hard to build. In today's video, we're going to explore 8 life-changing principles that will help you protect your time, your well-being, and your personal freedom while still keeping strong, loving bonds with your children and grandchildren. From setting healthy boundaries to finding joy in your own passions again, these insights could completely reshape how you experience this beautiful chapter of life. Stay with us until the end, because one idea today could truly transform how you live and love in your golden years. Let's begin with the first key lesson, number 1, protecting your own financial security. Have you ever asked yourself this? After a lifetime of hard work, saving, and sacrifice, will you spend your later years living for yourself or continue giving everything for your children and grandchildren? Many parents, even after retirement, still open their wallets whenever their children face challenges. Out of love, out of a sense of duty, and sometimes simply out of a habit that's lasted for decades. But if you're not careful, that kindness can cost you the one thing you need most in old age: financial independence, the key to peace and security in your later years. This is the story of Mr. Harold, 74 years old. He was a devoted husband, a caring father. He worked tirelessly all his life, saving every penny in hopes of a peaceful retirement. But then, his son lost his job and fell deep into debt. As a father, Harold couldn't stand by and do nothing. He withdrew from his savings, even sold the car he had driven for nearly 20 years, all to help his son get through a rough patch. But that rough patch never seemed to end. 3 years later, Mr. Harold was diagnosed with a heart condition and needed surgery. He looked at his savings account and saw almost nothing left. And his son, still trying to pay him back. In that moment, Mr. Harold didn't blame anyone. He just sat in silence. And for the first time in his life, he felt powerless over his own future. According to a report from the American Geriatric Society, nearly 38% of older adults experience financial instability in retirement, often because they provide too much financial support to their adult children. Dr. Sandra Morris, a retirement financial advisor, once emphasized, "No one else can retire for you." A bad money decision today can become a burden that lasts for decades. You may believe that helping your children is your responsibility, a natural expression of love. But if you give without protecting your own safety net, that love can open the door to anxiety, dependence, and emotional pain you never expected. When you protect your financial foundation, you give yourself the freedom to live without relying on your children, without being caught off guard when medical expenses arise or when you want to pursue something meaningful. And beyond that, you're teaching your children and grandchildren a powerful lesson. We are each responsible for securing our own future, even as we grow older. But this isn't just a sad story. It's a wake-up call for many of us. Because if you keep withdrawing out of guilt, out of habit, or out of love, without thinking it through, one day you might become the very burden you tried so hard to avoid. You'll lose your choices. You'll lose control. And worst of all, you may lose your self-respect. That painful feeling of having lived for others, but never truly for yourself. On the other hand, when you defend your finances, you reclaim a more peaceful, self-directed, and confident life. And in doing so, you actually reduce the weight your children might have to carry later on. Always remember, real love isn't about endless sacrifice. It's about balance, nurturing both your family and yourself. So today, I'm not saying you have to stop helping your children. I'm just asking you to remember this. Every dollar you keep for yourself is more than money. It's freedom, dignity, and peace of mind in your golden years. Now, let me ask you, sincerely, have you ever lent money to your children and never been paid back? Have you ever felt like you were slowly losing control over your own life because you gave too much? If any of this resonates with you, leave a number 1 in the comments so I know you're here and you're listening. And if you found this lesson meaningful, please like this video, share it with the parents you love, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where we grow together in wisdom, love, and strength throughout every stage of life. Lesson number 2. Keep your hobbies and personal life alive. There's something most people don't say out loud, but many quietly feel. Old age isn't frightening because your health declines. It's frightening because you no longer know who you're living for or what you're living for. After retirement or once their children start families, many older adults gradually stop making time for themselves. Their days revolve around family, grandkids, household chores, until one day they pause and look around, only to realize that the things that used to bring them joy, the reasons they used to wake up excited in the morning, have quietly slipped away. That kind of quiet sacrifice may look noble in the eyes of others, but it slowly dries up your spirit in ways even you might not notice. A 2021 study from Harvard University found that older adults who maintain personal activities like reading, gardening, painting, playing music, or learning a new language experience a 40% lower risk of depression. They also show better memory, sharper thinking, and overall higher quality of life. Because when you live with purpose, have hobbies, and keep your own space, you're not just passing time. You're nurturing your brain, lifting your spirit, and keeping your heart young. I'll always remember the story of Mrs. Alice, 71 years old, a gentle, thoughtful woman. She was an art teacher before she retired, and painting had been her passion for over 40 years. But after her daughter gave birth, Alice put down her brushes, closed up her little art room at the end of the hallway, and gave all her time to caring for her grandchild. At first, she felt fulfilled, but gradually, the quiet afternoons sitting in the kitchen, watching the clock without a single plan for herself, became more frequent. Then one day, while cleaning out a cabinet, she found her old box of paints. She sat down and painted for just one evening, and tears filled her eyes, because in that moment, she felt herself come back to life. From that day on, she set aside a few hours each week to paint, just a few hours. But it lit up her entire week. It wasn't that Mrs. Alice chose to be selfish. She simply chose not to lose herself. Dr. Anthony Yu, a specialist in geriatric psychology, once said, "A good mother isn't someone who does everything for her children, but someone who teaches them how to love by showing how she loves herself." That truth applies to all of us. As mothers, fathers, grandparents, we love our families endlessly, but we also need to love ourselves by preserving what brings us joy, even if it's something small and simple. Don't believe that your passions no longer matter. Don't let age convince you it's too late, because it's never too late to begin again, to smile because of something that belongs only to you. It might be a small box of soil to grow herbs, an old camera you once used, a handwritten journal, a monthly gathering with old friends, a dancing or cooking class at your community center. Whatever it is, hold on to it. Because when you keep a personal life alive, you remind yourself that you are still an individual, full of color, and deserving of happiness. Now, I'd like to gently ask you to reflect. What used to make you feel truly like yourself? Is there something you once loved that you lost along the way while being a parent or grandparent? If this message speaks to your heart, please leave a number 2 in the comments below. Lesson 3. Embracing change with a positive mindset. There's one thing that's certain in life, especially as we grow older, and that is change. Change in our health, in our daily rhythm, in our role within the family. Change when our children grow up, when old friends drift away, when our bodies are no longer as quick or strong as before. The things we once relied on begin to fade, and in their place, silence settles in, sometimes leaving us feeling lost or left behind. But there's another truth. Within those very changes, if we learn to see with new eyes, we can discover something surprisingly beautiful. According to a study by Yale University, older adults who maintain a positive attitude toward aging live, on average, 7.5 years longer than those who face it with fear, denial, or negativity. Not only do they live longer, they live better. More energy, better moods, lower risk of depression and heart disease. Because when your spirit is light and open, your body responds with strength and ease. It sounds simple, but it's not always easy. Because life doesn't always give us reasons to smile. We face loneliness, we grieve, we worry that we're no longer needed. But even in those difficult moments, we can choose how we respond. The story of Mr. Lewis, age 69, is a powerful example. After retiring, Lewis felt completely empty. For 40 years, he had been an engineer, working with purpose, clear routines, daily meetings, trusted colleagues. Then suddenly, it all stopped. He woke up each morning with nowhere to go, no plan, no sense of direction. At first, he filled his days with television, meals, and silent sighs, until one day he stepped outside. He visited a small community garden near his neighborhood, just to look. But something drew him in. He planted a few seeds, tended a tiny patch, made friends with others who were also rediscovering themselves. And after just a few weeks, something changed. He smiled more. He slept better. His days passed more quickly. Not because he was busy, but because they had meaning again. Aging, when seen through the old lens, can make you feel slow, weak, like you're standing on the sidelines. But if you shift your perspective, you'll see something else entirely. This is not the end. This is a new chapter, one where you can live more slowly, more deeply, and more freely than ever before. This is the moment when you no longer have to prove anything. You no longer have to race. Now is the time to live true to yourself, to do what brings you joy, and to savor each moment, mindfully, fully. And if someone ever asks you, at your age, what's left to do, just smile and say, at this age, I'm finally living for me. Now, I'd like to invite you to pause and gently look within. Are you seeing aging as an ending or as a brand new beginning on your own terms? Is there something you've always wanted to try, but never gave yourself the chance to do? Lesson number 4, setting boundaries with your children. Parenting is a journey that never truly ends. Even when our children grow up, the hearts of mothers and fathers still lean toward them, as if they were little all over again. But here's something many people don't say out loud. That quiet, creeping feeling of being pulled too far past your own limits, simply because you couldn't bring yourself to say no to your child. We've grown so used to sacrificing that we feel guilty for simply wanting to rest. We've been always available for so long that we forget we too deserve to be cared for. Modern science has confirmed what many older adults silently experience. When clear boundaries are missing in family relationships, especially between parents and adult children, chronic stress can take root. This leads to sleep disorders, high blood pressure, weakened immunity, and even long-term mild depression. The fear of disappointing our kids makes many parents cancel their doctor's appointments, skip breaks, and give up precious time and energy for things that, honestly, should no longer be their responsibility. I think of Mr. Robert, age 72, a devoted grandfather. When his daughter had her first baby, he happily volunteered to help with childcare. At first, it was fulfilling. He felt useful, but soon, his schedule of 2 days a week turned into 5. He skipped lunch just to make it to pickup time. He delayed doctor visits because Monday is baby day. Eventually, his body gave him a clear warning: intense back pain, exhaustion. That's when he decided to pause. He gently but firmly called his daughter and said, I love my grandchild, but I also need time to take care of my own health. At first, his daughter was surprised, but then she rearranged her work hours, found additional help, and most importantly, she finally understood something. Her father was not a tireless machine. He was a person with needs, limits, and a right to rest. Boundaries aren't walls. They're protection. They don't damage relationships. They make them healthier and more sustainable. When you set a boundary, you're not creating distance. You're giving others a chance to understand you and to value you more deeply. You're also teaching your children something essential, that real love doesn't mean erasing yourself. And if you still hesitate, if you've ever felt guilty just for saying one honest no, please remember this: you've spent your whole life giving. Now you have the right to keep something for yourself. A well-timed no can restore your health, your peace of mind, and those precious years ahead. It's not selfish. It's the courage to love wisely, with limits. Now let me ask you, from the heart, have you ever felt guilty just for wanting a break? Have you said yes when your heart was silently begging for rest? If this story sounds familiar, please leave a number 4 in the comments. Don't be afraid to share what you're feeling, because you're not alone. And if you believe the time has come to love yourself with wisdom, please like this video, share it to spread this important message, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where we learn together how to live joyfully, stay healthy, and honor the life we've built every single day. Lesson number 5, maintaining emotional independence. There's something many older adults quietly go through. It's that sinking feeling of sadness, disappointment, even loneliness, just because the calls didn't come, The messages grew fewer, or a lunch with the kids was canceled at the last minute. No one talks about it, but many hearts are quietly hurting, not because of anything dramatic, but simply from the feeling of being forgotten. When we were younger, we did everything for our children, without needing anything in return. But as we grow older, what we truly need isn't material things. It's a check-in, a thoughtful glance, a simple message that says, "Mom, Dad, did you eat yet?" And when that doesn't come, we feel it. We feel let down. And slowly, our happiness begins to depend on someone else. But here's something you need to remember. Your emotions are sacred ground, and only you should hold the key. If you hand them over to someone else, you're putting your happiness in the hands of people who may be too busy or may not fully understand what you truly need. Dr. Karen Ellis, a specialist in geriatric psychology, once said, "Older adults aren't vulnerable because they're weak. They're vulnerable because they place their hearts in someone else's hands without keeping the key for themselves." Let me tell you the story of Mrs. Eleanor, age 73. She had always been a devoted mother, the kind who stayed close. When her son was in college, she called every night. When he started a family, she helped however she could. But time passed. Her son got busier. The calls became less frequent. The visits came further apart. Every time he canceled, she didn't complain. But quietly, tears would fall. Then one day, Eleanor made a decision. She wrote down 3 things she used to love but had forgotten. Joining her library's book club, growing orchids in her garden, singing with old friends at church. From then on, she stopped waiting for her son to call. She started calling her friends instead. She no longer hoped her son would invite her out. She began planning her own outings, and something beautiful happened. Not only did she feel more alive, her relationship with her son improved, because when she stopped expecting too much, even small gestures became delightful surprises, no longer conditions for happiness. Emotional independence doesn't mean being cold. It means being intentional. It frees you from needing others to decide when and how you feel. It gives you back control over your inner world, and that's where real peace begins. You can love your children and grandchildren deeply while still protecting your own emotional space, healthy, free, and unshaken. And you know what? When you learn to create joy for yourself, you'll discover that you don't need to be needed to feel worthy, because you've always been worthy. You just need to see it first. So I invite you to pause right now and gently ask yourself, have you ever felt sad just because your child didn't call? Is there something you once loved that you'd be willing to do again just for you, not for anyone else? If this lesson touched something in you, please leave a number 5 in the comments so we know you're listening, reflecting, and walking this journey with us. Lesson number 6, passing down values, not just possessions. When we talk about leaving something behind for our children and grandchildren, most people immediately think of houses, cars, savings accounts, material wealth. But if you ask someone who has lost their parents, what do you miss the most? Very few will mention the numbers in a bank account. They remember a simple piece of advice about living kindly, the stories Dad used to tell at the dinner table, the way Mom cared for each meal, each moment, how their grandparents treated others with quiet grace, a way of being that earned lifelong admiration. Because the most meaningful legacy you can leave isn't locked in a safe. It's carried in the hearts, character, and memories of those who remain. A study from Stanford University found that older adults feel their lives are 60% more meaningful when they're able to share life experiences, moral lessons, and positive perspectives, instead of only acting as a financial support system, because money runs out. But wisdom and the example of a life well lived can shape generations to come. I'm reminded of Mrs. Helen, age 75. She didn't have much wealth, no large retirement account, no fancy house to pass down, but she had a small notebook. In it, she had written little pieces of her life, her childhood in poverty, her mistakes, her marriage lessons, how she raised her children with almost nothing, and the quiet, powerful moments when she overcame life's storms. When she passed away, that notebook was passed through 3 generations. And more than once, her grandchildren opened it not for nostalgia, but for guidance. Instead of asking Google, they turned to Grandma. Because she didn't leave behind money, she left a compass for life. And sometimes that's what helps people weather their hardest storms. You know what? You don't have to be a writer or a speaker to share what you've learned. You just have to be brave enough to open your heart. Simply, honestly, and with love. And your children and grandchildren will listen, and they'll remember. Maybe it's a cup of tea and a quiet chat. Maybe it's a handwritten letter, a journal, or maybe it's just the way you face your challenges. That alone can teach the next generation a priceless lesson in strength. Never believe you have nothing left to give, because sometimes your peaceful attitude, your compassion, your calm presence are exactly what your family needs most in a world that feels too fast, too loud, and too overwhelming. People may forget what you gave them, but they will never forget how you lived. So today, I gently invite you to reflect. What do you want your children and grandchildren to remember about you? What part of your life, if you shared it, could become a guiding light for someone else one day? If this lesson touched your heart, please leave a number 6 in the comments below, so we know you're here with us, helping to pass on life's most meaningful gifts. And if you believe that life becomes most beautiful when we leave behind something greater than ourselves, please like this video, share it with the people you love, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where every story holds wisdom, compassion, and the timeless light of those who came before us. Lesson 7. Teaching your children to be independent. There's a truth that many older parents are reluctant to admit. It's this: sometimes by loving too much, we unintentionally keep our children from truly growing up. As parents, we're willing to do anything to help our children through hard times. We take out loans to cover their debts. We carry burdens that they need to learn to face. We worry on their behalf, just hoping they'll be okay. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, am I really helping? Or am I holding them back from becoming who they're meant to be? According to statistics from AORP, 1 in 3 American parents over the age of 60 continues to financially support their adult children, not because the children are incapable, but because they've never truly been required to stand on their own. Let me share the story of Mr. Frank, age 70, a father who always carried everything for his son. Every time his son lost a job, Frank covered the bills. Every time there was a financial mistake, Frank stepped in, quietly, without complaint, because in his mind, he's still my son. But the more Frank helped, the more he noticed. His son became indecisive, irresponsible, always waiting for dad to fix things. Then came the day when Frank's own health began to decline. He could no longer offer the same support, so he sat down with his son and said, "I've spent my whole life trying to protect you from hardship, but I've realized that I may have taken away your chance to become a real man." Those words weren't easy to say, and they weren't easy to hear, but they became a turning point. From that moment on, Frank's son began to change. He started over, made mistakes, fell, but picked himself up. And something amazing happened. Their relationship didn't grow distant. It became closer, more respectful than ever before. Loving your children doesn't mean carrying their weight. Caring doesn't mean rescuing them every time. And being a good parent, sometimes, means having the courage to step back and let them step forward. Dr. Martha King, a family psychologist at the University of Michigan, once said, "When parents stop solving every problem for their children, they're not turning their backs, they're giving a precious gift. Trust in the power of self-reliance. When you allow your child to manage their own finances, you're teaching them to plan, to understand the value of money, and to take responsibility for their choices. When you allow them to handle their own problems, you're helping them grow, emotionally and mentally. And when you stop always being there, you create the space they need to learn how to stand tall on their own and to appreciate you more deeply when you are there." Here's something to remember. A lifetime of help can't replace the value of the right lesson at the right moment. A strong child doesn't need you to walk with them forever. They need you to believe they can walk on their own. So today, I want to ask you, have you ever felt completely worn out from always saving your child? Is there something you've been doing for them, but deep down, you know they should be doing themselves? If this lesson made you pause and reflect, please leave a number 7 in the comments below. Lesson number 8. Learning to say no to protect your peace. There are some no's that seem small, but if you don't say them, they can cost you your sleep, your health, your freedom, and even your joy. At a certain age, many of us learn how to say, "Okay, sure, sweetheart," even when we're exhausted, even when our backs ache, our knees hurt, and our doctor appointments have been rescheduled for the 3rd time. We say yes because we're afraid our children will feel hurt, because we think we're their rock, because we believe that if we don't help, maybe we're no longer valuable. But you know what? Kindness does not mean endless sacrifice, and being a good person doesn't mean you must always please others at the cost of yourself. A study from the Mayo Clinic's Center for Senior Health found that older adults who frequently say yes when they aren't truly ready are at higher risk for stress, depression, and sleep disorders. Not because they don't love their families, but because they're giving more than they can afford to lose. Let me share the story of Mr. George, age 78. As a father and grandfather, he was always the first one his children called. Need someone to babysit? George. Need help moving? George. Need a co-signer on a loan? George. At first, he felt helpful, needed, but slowly, he began to feel like he was being taken for granted. He started canceling his own plans, skipped his monthly fishing trip with friends, pushed through back pain every weekend to be there for his kids, until one day he hit a wall, physically and emotionally, and that's when he chose to change. But it didn't begin with a big dramatic moment. It began with one quiet sentence. This time, I'm going to say no. That simple no didn't break his relationship. In fact, it did the opposite. His children finally saw that their father had limits, that he needed rest, that he deserved to be cared for, not just called when help was needed. Saying no isn't selfish. It's self-respect. Because when you say no at the right time, you are protecting your health, guarding your personal time, and most importantly, teaching your children to respect your boundaries and to understand that even kindness has limits. Dr. Elaine Harper, a behavioral psychologist specializing in aging, once said parents are only fully loved and appreciated when their children understand they are not an endless resource. And you know what? In a world that constantly demands more from you, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is to pause, hold back, and protect that quiet place inside you, because you're not a service. You're not here to meet every request. You are a person with emotions, with health needs, with the right to live in peace. So now let me gently ask, when was the last time you said no to protect yourself? Are you feeling tired, but still pushing through, just to avoid disappointing your children? If those questions made you stop and reflect, please leave a number 8 in the comments to let me know you're here and that together we're walking toward inner freedom. If you've stayed with us until this very moment, then I truly believe this. You are not just someone who has weathered life's many storms. You are someone who is still walking forward with a heart full of love and slowly learning to love yourself just a little more each day. These 8 lessons may not be new to you. You might have heard them in passing, once or twice in life, but maybe today you heard them with different ears. The ears of experience, of awakening, and of a heart that's ready to live the rest of life more gently, more meaningfully. You don't have to change the whole world. Just dare to live a little differently each day. Say no once, without guilt. Choose yourself once, without apology. Go for a walk. Write a journal entry. Pick up an old painting, just because it brings you joy. And place your hand over your heart and say, I'm still here. I still matter, and I still deserve to live a full and beautiful life. Growing older is not the end. It is a precious pause. A space where you can write the most beautiful chapter of your life, slowly, deeply, and more brilliantly than ever before. Believe this, it is never too late to start living for you. You've spent so many years living for others. Now is the time to live for yourself, not out of selfishness, but because you truly deserve it. If something in this message stirred your soul, please leave a comment below. A note to yourself and to others walking this journey beside you. Tap like if your heart feels just a little stronger right now. Turn on the bell so each week we can gently remind you that you are still alive, still beautiful, and that there is so much more ahead. And if this channel speaks to your soul, please subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where every video is a letter, every lesson a quiet conversation, and every moment a small step closer to a life worth living. Not just safe, but filled with freedom, purpose, and love. I'll see you in the next video, and I'll still be here, waiting like an old friend who truly cares, walking beside you through the most beautiful days of your life.